Hola Kool-Aids and welcome Marcus Rashford fans. This Champions League campaign definitely started out with a bit more positivity than it did last year, and I'm excited to talk about it today. Well, in episode 725 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network, I'm Dan Hilton, and before we get started, I want to remind everybody to please continue to join me on Big Up at a Good Crowd today for the watch along against Newcastle, and I hope to see similar numbers against Adafe. Thank you so much to everyone who's also been subscribing to the YouTube channel. I am nearing ever closer to 50,000, and I hope to have a special surprise for everybody when we get there. Please also continue to help me out on the podcast apps or become a patron for as low as $3 to get these shows for free without the ads. So without further ado, let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-1 victory over Newcastle to kick off the Champions League season. Headline 1 is a beautiful press, and I'm actually not talking about Barcelona's press, I'm actually talking about Newcastle's. At St. James's Park, we knew that Newcastle was going to come out and run, but I was kind of surprised at Eddie Howe. Maybe it is that Voldemade can't go 90 minutes. I did know that was part of the equation, but instead of Voldemade starting that game, Eddie Howe decides to have Anthony Gordon, who was very fit because he hadn't played in a few weeks because of being suspended in the EPL. He was fresh and ready to go and ready to press. Ron Araujo on the other side got the start for all the defending that he was going to need to do. And so I think both managers, that being Eddie Howe and Hansi Flick, and it has something to do with this match being 0-0 at halftime, got it right. And very rarely can you say that both managers seem to get it right tactically. And that's why I think it was really fun to start, even though, again, it was 45 minutes of scoreless football to start this game. Because while there was nothing in the back of the net, it doesn't mean that there wasn't action. It was an insane press from Newcastle to start this game. So much energy as expected, but they really did come and deliver. They were pitting Barcelona into their own half for about the first 6-7 minutes. Barca couldn't even get across midfield, and they were in particular attacking Gerard Martin's side, which you would have expected with Balde out. But it's not like Koundé had a free night off because they also attacked Koundé with diagonals over to Barnes. The first 2 warning shots of the match came through Anthony Gordon whiffing on a ball squared in, and then Barnes was offside on a run into the half space. Both of those were 2 that Barca could say, all right, well, we've seen some of the issues early on. Let's try to calm down and settle into this game. Araujo was also unwilling to bring the ball down. Defensively, he was so solid. I understand, as I said, was the right choice for Hansi Flick to start him. But as far as dealing with the press, we know that Araujo doesn't really solve anything with the ball at his feet, but instead the strategy was pretty simple. It seemed like Hansi Flick said, don't even worry about it. I don't want to consider what you're going to do with the ball at your feet. Just head that ball away, clear that ball away, and then we'll reset our defensive structure and deal with Newcastle there. Because Newcastle don't have the ball and they're pressing. They were as dangerous without it than they were with it, trying to break down Barcelona either through the middle or through the wings, which wasn't necessarily working because of really good individual one-on-one defending from Barcelona. And that's all 10 players on the field, plus Juan Garcia with some steady hands in net. On the other side for Barcelona, their first actual foray into the attack came in the 10th minute. It was Juan Garcia to Rashford. Rashford getting Trippier to miss, and he was off to the races. Just mishit the shot, and there was some criticism of Rashford in that first half. He wasn't clinical. The passes were wanting, and you saw that there were signs, but if you had told me that he'd be scoring a brace by the end of it, having just taken the first 10 minutes or so, I would have been pretty surprised. Headline 2 is fighting for the front foot. This is both teams, again, fighting to get on the front foot in this game. And for Newcastle, they once again had their opportunities, but Juan Garcia was just too good in this game. The first set piece that needed defending came in the 14th minute, but yeah, good hands by Juan Garcia. Then in the 19th minute, Rafinha crossed it in. Lewandowski got to the header first, but Pope's trailing arm hit him afterwards. The ball had already hit Lewandowski, so that is no foul, no PK, nothing like that. And this is really the one moment that I'll speak about Lewandowski. I know that he didn't do much, but he started this match like I predicted he would for all the reasons that he did. Because all the little movements and space that Rafinha and Rashford were picking up in transition, that's because Lewandowski was a consummate distraction and professional. He was willing to battle physically with his back to goal all evening long, and all of that space that he was creating was so important for the wingers in Rafinha and Rashford to be able to play underneath him. It all doesn't work without Lewandowski. In the 24th minute, we go back to talking about Newcastle on the attack. It's Elanga on the break. It's a 3v2. Barnes in behind after Elanga beats the offside trap. Araujo and Cubarsí get caught, and Juan Garcia does make the save. It is also poor defending here from Gerard Martin. after really good 1v1 defending by Gerard Martin. And in the first half, I think Rashford and Gerard Martin on that left side did kind of sum it up. No, they are not Rafinha and Valde defensively. And really, offensively, they add something so different than those two other normal options that we're used to, that you saw the highs and you saw the lows from that left side from Barcelona. 35th minute, here is some of that good from Gerard Martin and also good pressure from Barcelona. Gerard Martin stepping in, keeping it in Newcastle third of the field, and then dribbling through Newcastle. Don't see that very often. The home team, though, with some vital blocks on shots from every angle as Barcelona tried to end that first half with some pressure. Also a yellow on Gerard Martin in the first half with a tackle on Bruno. Dan Burn also picked up a yellow on an even worse tackle on Koundé. So it's not like the ref was willing to let everybody just play. He was willing to throw out some yellows in the first half to calm everything down, which I think was the right move by the referee. Headline 3 is Rashford's Thunder. Let's get into the fun now. In the second half, there were no changes to report from either side, which I do like. It felt like both teams had something in that game that they could take more from. And it was Barcelona who, of course, strike first. And I say Thunder here because Thunder is kind of in the area. You're not sure exactly where it is, and it pops up on you. And that's exactly what Rashford did for that 58th minute goal. The goal actually starts with a Gerard Martin throw-in from deep in his own half. Now, he loses it, but Fermin Lopez, who was doing all the little things too. Same thing with Lewandowski. Fermin Lopez, he was where he needed to be to help Barcelona both defensively and at times offensively, though I do think he was kind of waiting for that third phase of play to happen. So we didn't see the best of him offensively, but defensively, he gets the interception here, wins it at the top of the box for Barcelona. And then it's Koundé up to Rafinha upfield, and Rafinha off to the races. Rafinha can't cross it in, but Barca cycles the ball around, and it's Koundé without Barnes closing too quickly on him, delivers it perfectly to the head of Rashford, and Rashford catches Schär sleeping. I don't know why Schär took a step away from Rashford. He put an arm out to try to reach to him to see where he was, but Rashford just kind of held his ground. Schär was the one who moved, and then because Rashford didn't move, had all that power from his lower body all built up, so Koundé puts it right to his head, and he powers out with a strong neck and spine right past Pope, who can't really do much of it, and Barcelona's up 1-0 due to Rashford's Thunder. Headline 4 then, Rashford's Lightning. Yeah, of course, I got a little punny here. The Thunder and the Lightning for Marcus Rashford with this brace. What I liked right after the goal from Barcelona, and I do credit again, the energy of Rafinha, who was much better in that second half, especially with his first touch, as well as Fermin Lopez. A lot of energy coming from the Barcelona 11. After that goal was scored, there was no let off. Newcastle could have got back on the press, but the press also was slowing down that second half because there began to be tired legs for the Magpies, even with that home crowd, who also, after the goal was scored, kind of let off the steam a little bit. And that can't happen if you're at home. And I was really happy with Barcelona. They were able to keep that pressure up. And it was also interesting to note that Schär was immediately after that goal was scored, kind of taken off, which coincided with 3 other changes, which can be a bit risky for Eddie Howe, introducing both Murphy and Voldemade. So offensively, changing some things up, defensively also having to make some subs. And I think before all the Newcastle changes were able to acclimate to the game, Barcelona and particularly Marcus Rashford were already scoring goal number 2. Not that any of the subs or starters really would have mattered on this shot unless they were going to throw their body in front of it. And even then, they would have found themselves with the ball right in the back of the net. Like one of those commercials from the 90s where you had the players shooting the ball and then the goalie goes into the goal with them. And I don't remember what product is being advertised, but I know this was on a small SD TV. So yeah, if you're watching on YouTube in the comments or hit me up on social media, let me know what commercial am I talking about. Is this, say, Tony the Tiger commercial or some kind of breakfast cereal or energy drink? Either way, let me know because this goal felt as wacky and wild as those commercials. This is a wow on Marcus Rashford. Barcelona were also taking advantage, I think, on this goal of the chaos. I am old enough to remember, too, when I used to say that Barcelona would not get goals off chaos. Instead, it was the opposition that would score on Barcelona when the game would get chaotic, and Barcelona had to have control or else they wouldn't score. But this starts with clearances in either direction. A long header from Araujo. It bounces oddly as Rafinha distracted 3, and it's that near post run from Lewandowski. Burn goes with him, and Burn also gives it right back to Rashford on a failed clearance. And Rashford attacks Tonali and just unloads with the right foot. Pope couldn't get anything on it. This one's right into the back of the net for Rashford, and a brace for a man that needed some confidence. And this is the kind of stuff, both a header goal and a rocket of a shot with his right foot, that's going to give him a ton of confidence. I've been seeing on social media, they say don't fall in love with a lone player, but if Barcelona can get back into the Camp Nou and they can make 30 million euros on gate revenue and they can increase that wage limit on the wage bill and all that boring stuff, then he won't be a lone player much longer if he plays like this, especially in the absence of Lamine Yamal. It's to Barcelona with just 20 plus minutes to go in the game. And at that point, they were in a really good spot. And the spot where I can finally bring up two names I haven't mentioned yet in Pedri and De Jong, because even with those subs in the 69th minute coming on, Ferran Torres for Lewandowski and Christensen for Garcia, that second half really was all about De Jong and Pedri once that second goal was scored. They were so crucial to Barcelona in the second half, outplaying Joelinton and Bruno in the middle. De Jong in particular was really, really superb. There were so many moments where I think in the past I would have felt like he over dribbled, or maybe he wasn't taking initiative where he needed to, or defensively he was out of position. But no, there was so many times with the ball when he would dribble into space and then just slow everything down with that pausa that we never expected the Dutch midfielder to have, but all of his teammates and coaches keeps telling us that he has, and he had that in this match. He was really, really good. And then of course Pedri was Pedri. The only real blemish I think for either of them was Pedri was a bit sloppy in stoppage time when you could clearly tell he had lost his legs, and frustration for him was certainly starting to boil up. And De Jong also in the 82nd minute picked up that yellow so that Newcastle wouldn't be out on the break. There are a bunch of, we'll say, dark arts tackles from Barcelona to pick up yellows to not allow Newcastle to get into the attack, and De Jong took one of those late in the second half. But again, this is as close to a perfect performance, I thought, from both De Jong and Pedri today. And if you win the midfield battle, especially on the road, you give yourself a really good chance in that match, and those two did that in the second half. And in the 72nd minute, Rafinha didn't miss by much on a shot, but I'm only highlighting this because of the Rashford diagonal that again showed a player with a ton of confidence, both with the shot short, but also with a pass. And if Rashford is going to be that confident under Hansi Flick, a guy that does, again, also speak English in Hansi Flick, communicating 1v1 with Rashford, that's going to give Rashford the confidence he needs to be the best depth option up top that Barcelona have in, I don't know, maybe Pedro years and years ago. This is a really good problem to have for Hansi Flick if he has four attackers, and actually make that five because Lewandowski and Ferran Torres sharing the number 9 position. So you got 5 attackers for 3 spots, and that is a really great problem for Hansi Flick to have if that winds up being the case. Then headline 5 is final hurdle. Barcelona was not out of the woods just yet. Joan Garcia still had to make some important saves, one coming to 74th minute on a long shot from Bruno. That was followed by a Fermin yellow, again to stop the break. In the 80th minute, Fermin delivered a ball to Ferran Torres over the top, but Torres fell over a bit too easily, so the ref says nothing to it. 82nd minute, more changes. Eric Garcia and Dani Olmo for Gerard Martin and Rashford. Eric was playing left back, and just like Gerard Martin, Murphy coming on, and I think it was also unfortunate for Eric Garcia because Fermin then pushed out to the left wing, and he was pretty out of gas. There wasn't much for Fermin Lopez left in his legs to come back and help Eric Garcia defend. So against the newly fresh Jacob Murphy, Eric Garcia was a bit on an island playing out of position at left back. So not out of position at center back or right back, but no, out of position at left back. And Eric Garcia, once again, the Swiss Army knife for Hansi Flick, did an okay job there late in the game. 90th minute, though, here comes a Newcastle goal. It's 2-1, Anthony Gordon in transition. One-touch stuff from Newcastle. That's the way to break down a Barcelona, not say press, but a Barcelona team that was starting to get a little bit long in the legs. So, yeah, the one-touch stuff can break down any team. It's a dangerous final delivery from Murphy, who, as I said, was fresh, across the box to Gordon, who finishes behind Koundé, and nothing that Joan Garcia can do about it. Now, fortunately for Culés, though, this is not your mama's Barcelona. This is Hansi Flick's Barcelona, and they are a team that is willing to deal with adversity, and I think they learned a lesson or two against Inter Milan last season in the Champions League. They didn't even kind of kill this game slowly, but yeah, because the goal actually happened in the 90th minute, but there in the last 8 minutes or so of stoppage time, in comes Marc Cossadeau, and just continue to try to slow this game down the best you can. He comes on for Fermin. That pushed Pedri forward in theory, but really it's just keep the ball, Bumblebee around. 90 plus 5, Rafinha to Olmo. It's a one-time, forces a good save from Pope, and it's a long Torres shot right afterwards to force another corner, but still Barcelona were giving Newcastle those final opportunities. Cossadeau gets a yellow to stop the break with seconds remaining. And then a final throw-in for Newcastle. It's an important half clearance by Koundé, and Joan Garcia saw it into his gloves. Koundé and Joan Garcia defensively, very much like Ronald Araujo, so essential to this game. And while this wasn't the prettiest game, I give credit to everybody for Barcelona to go on the road with that adversity against that crowd, with a Newcastle team with a lot of energy, a lot of fight, a lot of excitement, and they managed to absorb the pressure, deal with it. Said it wasn't the prettiest, but it was not a bad match by Barcelona at all. This is what a Champions League fixture looks like, and the 7 more matches that are left to go in the Champions League phase, getting the 3 points against Newcastle, like we talked about with PSG and Chelsea still on the horizon. Those are 2 more huge matches for Barca, but you really wanted to start on the right foot. This was a match, too, I will say, that I think to give credit to Newcastle, who, with a lot of class afterwards, Eddie Howe and Anthony Gordon gave a lot of credit to Barcelona and how difficult it was to take the ball off them. But this is the kind of high-quality Champions League match that we should expect when we enjoy European nights. And I think this is the kind of night that Sir Bobby Robson, former Newcastle player and Newcastle legend, and Barcelona manager for one very fun season with R9 or Brazilian Ronaldo back in the late 90s, I think he's looking down and enjoying that kind of match. So I do hope you enjoyed this match. I hope you enjoyed this match review. If you did, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help me out, of course, on the podcast apps. And please, please, please join me on Big Up on Sunday for that one against Adafe. And hopefully there is a lot less fireworks in that one than there could have been in this one. But yeah, you know what you're going to get with Adafe. So I do hope to see everybody on Sunday. And with that, I do bid you adieu and Forza Barca.